Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today we are diving deep into one of the most chilling topics that has captivated human curiosity for centuries. We are exploring the 10 creepiest ghost sightings ever recorded. These are tales that have been documented, investigated, and verified by countless witnesses and paranormal experts. Some of these stories are so disturbing that they will send shivers down your spine. So, if you are brave enough, stick around as we journey through the darkest corners of the supernatural world. Number 10. The Grey Lady of Hampton Court Palace. Our countdown begins with one of the most famous ghost stories in England. Hampton Court Palace, a magnificent royal residence, has been the site of numerous supernatural encounters. The most famous ghost inhabiting these walls is known as the Grey Lady. This ethereal figure has been spotted by thousands of visitors and staff members over the centuries. The Grey Lady is believed to be Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of King Henry VIII. Catherine was executed within the palace walls in 1542 on charges of infidelity. Witnesses who have encountered her spirit describe seeing a woman dressed in a gray gown, moving silently through the corridors of the palace. The most terrifying aspect of her apparition is the expression of absolute terror frozen on her ghostly face. Visitors have reported seeing her gliding through the halls, seemingly unaware of the living people around her. Security guards have locked down entire sections of the palace after witnessing her haunting presence. The most disturbing encounter occurred when a group of tourists reported that they actually felt a sudden, violent push from an invisible force in the exact corridor where Catherine Howard was executed. The temperature in that specific area drops dramatically whenever her presence is felt. Number 9. The Phantom Hitchhiker of Route 66. This chilling account takes us to the legendary Route 66 in America. Throughout the 20th century, truck drivers and travelers reported encounters with a mysterious hitchhiker who appears on deserted stretches of the highway. The Phantom Hitchhiker has been documented in numerous accounts and has become one of America's most persistent ghost stories. Drivers describe picking up a woman or man in tattered clothing who seems disoriented and confused. When the driver asks where they are headed, the figure typically remains silent or gives vague directions. Then, inexplicably, when the driver reaches the destination or glances in the rearview mirror, the hitchhiker has completely vanished from the vehicle, leaving no trace of their presence. In one particularly chilling account, a driver reported that the phantom hitchhiker turned to him with a skeletal face and whispered a date from years in the past before vanishing into thin air. That very date, he later discovered, was the date of a major accident at that exact location where several people had perished. Number 8. The Screaming Skull of Bettiscombe. In the quiet English countryside, there stands a manor house that has been haunted by one of the most disturbing supernatural artifacts ever documented. The Screaming Skull of Bettiscombe is a real human skull kept within the manor, and it is said to emit blood-curdling screams whenever anyone attempts to remove it from the premises. The skull's origins are shrouded in mystery, but legend has it that it belonged to a servant or slave who was murdered on the property centuries ago. The spirit bound to this skull is said to be deeply tormented and furious at being held captive. In one account from the Victorian era, the family decided that they would finally give the skull a proper burial far from the manor. However, the night before the planned burial, the entire household was awakened by the most ear-piercing, agonized screams that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The next morning, the skull was found back on the shelf where it had been kept, as if returned there by some invisible force. No member of the household ever attempted to remove it again. Number 7. The Black-Eyed Children of Point Pleasant. During the late 1960s, the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, became the epicenter of one of the most disturbing paranormal phenomena ever recorded. Residents reported encounters with terrifying childlike entities with completely black eyes and pale, corpse-like skin. These creatures became known as the Black-Eyed Children. Families reported that these entities would appear at their doors or windows late at night, scratching relentlessly and demanding to be let inside with an unsettling, monotone voice. What makes these sightings particularly terrifying is that the Black-Eyed Children seem to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. and their appearances were reported by dozens of independent witnesses who had no contact with each other. The sightings escalated in frequency and intensity until they suddenly ceased, leaving behind only psychological trauma among the witnesses and unanswered questions about what these entities actually were. Number 6. The Poltergeist of Cock Lane. Our journey through the supernatural takes us back to London in the 18th century, to one of the most thoroughly documented and investigated poltergeist cases in history. The Cock Lane haunting terrified the entire neighborhood and attracted the attention of leading scientific minds of the era. The disturbances began in 1761, when a mysterious knocking sound was heard repeatedly throughout a modest house on Cock Lane. The knocking was deliberate and rhythmic, as if someone was trying to communicate through Morse-like patterns. As the phenomenon intensified, residents reported seeing objects move on their own, doors slam violently, and hearing disembodied voices calling out their names with intimate knowledge of their personal lives. The most chilling aspect of this haunting was the appearance of a ghostly woman who residents identified as a servant girl who had died in the house under mysterious circumstances. This apparition would appear to witnesses with visible wounds on her body, her eyes filled with an expression of betrayal and anguish. The entity seemed to be trying desperately to communicate something crucial about her death. Even more terrifying were the accounts of witnesses who reported being physically attacked by unseen forces. They described feeling invisible hands grasping at their throats and limbs, attempting to drag them into the darkness. The case attracted such attention that renowned figures of the time attended investigations, and the incident ultimately became one of the most famous hauntings in British history. Number 5. The Bell Witch of Tennessee. In Tennessee, a family's home became the battleground between the living and one of the most malevolent supernatural entities ever documented. The Bell Witch haunting, which occurred in the early 1800s, involved escalating supernatural terror that defied all rational explanation. The entity initially manifested as strange scratching sounds and the appearance of animals behaving inexplicably, but the haunting quickly escalated into something far more sinister. The invisible force began physically attacking family members, particularly the youngest daughter, Elizabeth. She would be scratched, punched, and slapped by an invisible presence. Witnesses reported seeing red welts appear on her body, as if by invisible hands. The most disturbing aspect of this haunting was the entity's ability to speak. The Bell Witch would engage in detailed conversations with family members, revealing intimate secrets and making accurate predictions about future events. The voice was described as the most horrifying sound imaginable, like 1,000 voices screaming in unison. The entity claimed to be seeking revenge for past wrongs and seemed determined to drive the family to madness and despair. The haunting became so intense that the family could no longer function normally. Sleep was impossible due to constant disturbances. The entity would follow them from room to room. Some report hearing phantom cannon fire and the screams of wounded soldiers in the dead of night. The most terrifying encounters involve seeing soldiers who are visibly wounded or dismembered, reliving their final moments over and over again. One of the most documented encounters involved a visitor who reported being followed by the ghost of a Confederate soldier with a visible bullet wound through his chest. The apparition followed the visitor throughout the entire battlefield, and when the visitor attempted to run away, they felt a sudden, intense cold grip around their ankle that nearly caused them to fall. Park rangers have reported finding visitors in states of extreme distress, describing encounters with aggressive phantom soldiers who seemed determined to harm them. These encounters have been so common and so disturbing that the National Park Service acknowledges the paranormal activity at the site. Visitors are actively warned about the possibility of encountering supernatural phenomena on the battlefield. The entity claimed to be seeking revenge for past wrongs and seemed determined to drive the family to madness and despair. The haunting became so intense that the family could no longer function normally. Sleep was impossible due to constant disturbances. The entity would follow them from room to room, and their neighbors could hear the terrible sounds emanating from the house even from a distance. The case attracted so much attention that the governor of Tennessee himself arrived to investigate the phenomenon. Number 4. The Ghosts of Gettysburg. The battlefields of Gettysburg are considered to be among the most actively haunted locations in North America. During the Civil War, Nearly 60,000 soldiers were killed or wounded during the three-day battle. Many visitors and staff members have reported encountering the restless spirits of those who died in combat. Witnesses describe seeing transparent figures in Civil War uniforms marching through the fields, seemingly unaware that the battle has long since ended. Number 3. The Myrtles Plantation. This Louisiana plantation is widely considered to be one of the most haunted locations in the United States. The Myrtles Plantation has a dark history steeped in tragedy, murder, and deception. Over 200 spirits are believed to inhabit the mansion and its grounds. The most prominent ghost is believed to be a woman named Sarah Woodruff, who was poisoned and murdered within the house in the 1820s. Her apparition has been witnessed by hundreds of visitors and staff members. She is typically seen wearing a green dress and appears to be searching for something or someone. Some witnesses report that Sarah's ghost actively tries to harm them, pushing them downstairs or scratching them during the night. Another terrifying resident ghost is believed to be a man named William Winter, who was murdered on the property. His spirit is said to be particularly aggressive and vengeful. Visitors have reported being physically attacked by an unseen force, and multiple staff members have fled the plantation after experiencing violent encounters with his apparition. The most disturbing aspect of the haunting is the phenomenon of shadow figures that move independently throughout the mansion. These entities appear darker and more solid than typical ghosts, and they seem to actively prevent people from exploring certain areas of the house. Psychics who have visited the property report feeling an overwhelming sense of profound evil and malevolence emanating from specific rooms. Number 2. The Pendle Hill Witches. Our second most terrifying encounter takes us to Lancashire, England, during the 1612 witch trials. The Pendle Hill Witches haunt not just the physical location, but the collective consciousness of the region. The spirits of those who were executed for witchcraft are said to still roam the hills seeking justice and revenge. Hikers and visitors to Pendle Hill have reported encounters with ghostly figures dressed in tattered 17th century clothing. These apparitions are described as having intensely malevolent expressions and seem to actively pursue living people. Witnesses report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread when in the presence of these entities, as if they are experiencing the anger and bitterness of the wrongly condemned. The most disturbing encounters occur at night when visitors report being chased by invisible forces across the dark hillside. Some have described feeling invisible hands grabbing at them as they run. Others report hearing the agonized screams of women being tortured or burned. The psychological impact of these encounters has caused several visitors to suffer lasting trauma and nightmares. Paranormal investigators have documented electromagnetic disturbances and sudden temperature drops that coincide with eyewitness accounts of supernatural activity. The spirits of these innocent women seem bound to this location by their rage at historical injustice, and their presence continues to terrify and disturb everyone who encounters them. Number 1. The Amityville Horror. Our final and most chilling account brings us to the infamous Amityville house in Long Island, New York. This house has become synonymous with paranormal terror and supernatural malevolence. The haunting that occurred there in 1976 and continues to be reported today is considered by many to be the most intense and well-documented case of demonic possession and ghostly haunting in modern history. The house itself was the site of a horrific mass murder in 1974, when Ronald DeFeo murdered his entire family inside their bedrooms. After the murders, the house remained essentially empty until the Lutz family moved in during 1976. From the moment they entered the house, they were assaulted by relentless supernatural phenomena that defied rational explanation. The family reported seeing apparitions of the murder victims moving through the rooms at night. But these were not peaceful spirits. These were angry, aggressive entities that seemed intent on causing maximum psychological and physical harm to the living inhabitants. The family described seeing demonic faces peering at them from windows and shadows, moving independently throughout the house with clear intent and purpose. The supernatural occurrences escalated to terrifying levels. The entity would manipulate objects, slam doors with devastating force, and create disturbances that could be heard throughout the entire neighborhood. But more disturbingly, the invisible force seemed to directly target the family members, pushing them, scratching them, and attempting to drag them into different rooms. The most horrifying aspect of the Amityville haunting was the psychological manipulation. Family members reported feeling overwhelming urges to harm themselves and each other. They experienced visions of terrible violence and heard voices urging them toward destruction. Within just a few weeks, the family fled the house, leaving behind furniture,